Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Monday Afternoon Live. Yes, you heard that right. It's not Monday lunchtime live. It's Monday afternoon live. And the reason for that, and the reason that we're 2 hours late, is because we did broadcast at 12:30 today, but as Pete later put it when we were summing up the way it went, it was an unmitigated technological disaster. We had problems at both ends, particularly at mine, but we're really glad, excuse me, that we're online today with you today. So just over the next 20 minutes or so, we're just going to be having a little look back at the weekend and look forward to the week ahead. And also we're going to be sharing one or two updates about our building and when you can potentially expect in-person services to come back. We're really looking forward to sharing one or two things with you. Maybe before we go any further, Pete, would you like to tell us what you had for your lunch and maybe a little bit about what you did at the weekend?
Yeah, so it's good to be back with you guys now. I'm hoping it goes a little bit better than it did earlier this morning with you now. But yes, so for lunch, yeah, we just had some, hadn't just been shopping actually. So we just got some nice tiger bread in and did a little bit of that with some cheese and spreads and crisps and all the nice things you like to enjoy with a little bit of a picky lunch is what we call it. So that's what we had. It was great. And then over the weekend, we actually had a really nice time as a family. Weather was great, wasn't it, this weekend? Really, really good. So we went to a couple of parks. I got out in the garden, did some long overdue gardening. Went to war with a couple of bushes in my garden, and I'm covered in scratches and all sorts now, but they definitely took the brunt of it as I clipped off a lot of overgrown hedging in my garden. So it's looking a lot better now. There's still more to do, but the green bill is full, so the rest can wait for another day. And yeah, then yesterday we took the kids down to the park, obviously after watching church, and took them out for a bit of a walk. They've just got into their scooters, so they're loving getting out on their scooters at the moment. So we took them for a bit of a walk. They had a good scoot. We had a good walk. Everyone was well chuffed. And then we came back home, watched Willy Wonka, the film, introduced Seth to that, the 1971 classic with Gene Wilder, not the new one. And he absolutely loved that. So we had a really, really good weekend.
Brilliant. That's really good. I think for me, we've really taken this thing that we've had in church recently called the Homecoming series. We've taken it really seriously. So we really want to connect up with a few people. We had a couple of people, Lee and Lauren O'Rourke, they came over yesterday, which was really wonderful. And I kind of put a little bit of a thing on my Facebook saying, we don't have any plans for next Sunday. So if you'd like to spend next Sunday with us, give us a shout. And if we can do it, then we will we'll see if we can make that happen. Although one thing, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about how, with your executive pastor head on, Pete, you can tell us a little bit about how we can actually get around this because we know that from today, we're not supposed to meet in groups of more than 6. So how would you say that we could do church, say, together with other people on a Sunday without falling foul of current government guidance or regulations?
Yeah, so it's got a little bit more, a little bit more restricted, I guess, but probably actually a little bit less complicated if you're looking forward to meeting with people now. So the guidance has changed somewhat so that now there's just a restriction on 6 people from any household gathering either indoors or outdoors. Obviously, all of the social distancing guidelines remain in place, but you can now meet with up to 6 people from any household, either indoors or outdoors, but no more than 6 people. So, for instance, in our case, we are a family of 5, which means we cannot meet with both grandparents at the same time or anything like that. So, because that would put us over the limit. But if you would like to meet with somebody on a Sunday and share a time of worship together, maybe watch church together, you can do that as long as you don't go over 6 people. So whether that's 6 people from one household, one household is fine. If you're over 6 people in the same household, they're not going to chuck you out. But if you have maybe 4 people in your house and you want to invite a couple of people around, then you can do that fine. And they can be from different households if you want. So if you're perhaps if you're a single person or you're living in a house share with one other person, you can have up to 4 other people around to your house to watch church, to do church together. Similarly, for our life groups as well, you can, if you so choose, if there was maybe 12 of you in your life group, maybe you could arrange to meet in 2 different houses this week, and you could actually meet together as groups, but 2 smaller groups. Also, the use of our church building is still available to life groups. So if you're a larger life group and you all want to meet together, you can still do that safely on our premises, because it comes under the banner of a place of worship where the rules are unchanged, which means we can have as many people as we can fit safely whilst obeying the government guidance on social distancing, either inside or outside of our building. And we can maybe talk a little bit more about that as we get on to talking about some of the things we're going to look at a little bit later today.
Well, I wonder, Pete, if rather than just looking back on, if that might be a good time, rather than and then
let's do it.
a slightly different way of doing things. If we do that now, and then once we've finished chatting about that, we'll look back on Sunday and then take a little bit of a look at the week ahead. So if I just share really quickly, we've not been able to meet, have we, since March, as a whole gathered church body, and the thought of actually all being back together, everybody together, is still a long way off. I can't really see that for the foreseeable future, just because of the government restrictions. So we've not been able to meet together since March, which kind of really breaks my heart, because I love, like lots of people, I love the whole thing of the gathered church. I love people coming together. I always get this feeling that no matter what you've faced that week, no matter what might be going on, no matter the difficulties, it's like I get this feeling that anything's possible when we're together, when we're all of one mind and one heart, and we just want to worship Jesus together. We just want to seek his face. But we're in a situation at the minute where we're having to do that in smaller groups, in homes, or kind of when you're out and about and things like that. But what we're seeking to do is we're seeking to be able to bring back in-person services within current guidelines quite soon. What that would mean is that we would only be able to have very, very small numbers of people at any one time in for a service. But what we're seeking to do before that is we're seeking to transition from where we are at the minute, having a pre-recorded service that is just there and it's available to you as soon as it premieres on YouTube. That's always the best place to watch it on our YouTube channel. That's a great point to plug it. If you don't currently subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do just jump on there and click subscribe, and you'll get easy access to all our new and archive content as well. So please do that. We also have a smaller version on Facebook every Sunday as well, but YouTube's kind of the easiest place to go for all of that. So at the minute it's pre-recording. What we want to do is transition from that to a live service where it's literally happening right there in front of your eyes. We'll be able to make things a bit more interactive. We've actually recently, in order to help us do this, plus to help us move with some real confidence into the future, into the digital marketplace, I guess you could call it. We've invested in some really good hardware and some software so that we can make live streaming a possibility. Now, we don't know exactly when this is going to happen. Pete will be able to tell us more in a second, but once we're able to start live streaming and we're kind of confident with that and we've got that down to a T, then we'll be able to start introducing a small group of people. I've got this word audience in my head, a small audience of people, which sounds horrible because it doesn't sound at all participative, and really it can't be massively under the current guidelines, but it would mean that people could all be there together. Even though it'd only be in a small group, we may have to do things like look to give preference to certain people who maybe don't have digital access first, because there are an albeit small group of people within the church who haven't really been able to have much access to anything recently because they're not actually online. So that's something that we'll have to think about. There'll be lots of hurdles to overcome, but we think we've kind of got a bit of a potential roadmap in front of us. Would you like to share a little bit more, Pete?
Yeah, and I think as you identified, James, that the switch to live streaming is really an important one for us as we seek to just kind of continue to move forward on that roadmap towards meeting together again in person. And I think it's so important for us because we recognize that so many people are in all sorts of different situations. You know, there's plenty of people who, given the opportunity, would be happy to come back into the building and meet next Sunday if we were able to do that. But equally, there's plenty of people who just aren't in that position yet. And we don't want people to be left behind. We don't want anybody to kind of miss out. So the options presented to us are either continue to do what we're currently doing, which is okay. But for me, it's not ideal. And I know that would be true probably of everybody. We can maybe we could move to solely in-person meetings where we just work with very restricted numbers of people in the building, and we maybe ran 6 or 7 services through the Sunday. But I don't know about you, James, the prospect of doing that makes me worry for my own health. So I'm not sure that would be the best way to go. And then for us, we really feel that live streaming the service is the best option for us right now. So there's a number of technical challenges involved in doing that. But what that does allow us to do is provide a service in person for those who want to come to attend for that. And as you've rightly pointed out, the amount of people we'll be able to have in the building at any one time is going to be hugely restricted. So it's unlikely that everybody who wants to come will be able to come every week. However, we'll work to manage that in the best way possible. But what that will allow us to do is to have an in-person service which is simultaneously being beamed into your home if you're not able to be there on that Sunday. And the journey into that is going to be an interesting one. As I say, there's lots of technical challenges to overcome. And you highlighted again that we've just recently invested in some new technological equipment to allow us to do this in the way that we want to do it, and to allow us to do it going forward. You know, this isn't just something that we see as a stopgap between now and us getting back to services as they used to be. This is very much for us going to be a future fixture for us as a church. We really believe that a live stream of our service is something we want to carry on doing beyond this current circumstance as well. So we've invested into the equipment we believe is right for us in the long term. I also want to take this opportunity just to say that investment has come, it's been a significant financial investment for the church. I'm really grateful for the trustees in terms of them backing our vision for that as well. But I just want to mention to you who are watching, I know many of you already give massively faithfully to the church, and we're so grateful for everything that you do give. But we've stepped out in faith in this area. We've kind of nailed our colours to the mast and said this is a direction we want to go, and we've made a significant investment in a time where finances are strained as most other things are. So I just want to make an appeal to you to kind of if you feel led by God and you know there's something on your heart to give over and above perhaps what you have been giving, then it would very much help us to continue to move forward in this area that's really, really crucial for us. So we've made that investment, we've purchased the technology, we're learning how to use the technology, and what we're going to do is slowly start introducing elements of the service on a Sunday. We're going to take a switch from pre-recorded to live stream, and it won't all happen at once. We'll see some elements that will change straight away, and some that maybe are a little bit more technically challenging. We're going to seek to introduce those over the course of a few weeks. And then once we're confident with what we're doing with the live stream and we're happy that we're able to provide a service that works and gels together, then we'll be able to begin to layer in the other aspects of a Sunday. And one of those key aspects is, as you mentioned, James, a congregation. So that's kind of the roadmap. It may take us sort of 4-6 weeks to get to that point, but that's where we're looking at the moment.
And just to reassure everybody, I hope it's obvious from what we've shared, but we have by no means forgotten the fact that we want to be part of. We want to be having in-person services as soon as we can be. It's not something that's ever really gone away from our thinking. It's just that we've had to comply with the law of the land. We need to do that. There have been one or especially early on into lockdown, there were reports of 1 or 2 churches in America that continued to meet, and they were met with the full force of the law. I think in one of them, the pastor was even arrested, I think. So we really do need to do that. But we also the other thing I really just want to emphasize, and it's more of a general point, is just please do stay safe. Please do. I really do encourage you to do what's asked of you when it comes to washing hands, when it comes to wearing masks and things like that, because unless you've not been watching the news over the last sort of 2-3 weeks, there has been a rise in the number of cases, and without getting into all the minutiae of what that actually means, I think it's really important to say we don't ever want to be part of like a contributing factor towards a rise in cases. One of the great things about Lincolnshire and this kind of area of the East Midlands is that cases have been pretty low. So we're really grateful to God for that. When I see certain other parts of the country, it's not been the case. And so I'm really glad that's been the case. So please do stay safe. Please keep doing what you need to do. I've actually just a worthwhile point, and just to ask you to pray for family in the church. Actually, many of you will know Sue Cleffin Lewis, her daughter Leah, recently went to be with the Lord, very young age of 19. And I've actually just put, the reason I'm wearing a shirt today, I've just taken my tie off, but the reason I'm wearing a shirt is because I've just actually come back from a funeral, which was really heartbreaking to see someone of that age go. Just to let you know, it wasn't related to COVID at all. But please do stay safe. And when we went into the crematorium, we actually had to wear masks, and everyone kind of sit far apart from one another, and only a very small number of people were allowed in there. And it was a very, very sobering reminder of the fact that we need to stay safe. But can I just ask you, just to, wherever you are, just to keep Sue and Beth and the whole family and their closest friends in your prayers. This really, really sad time for them. So we hope that's been helpful. We'll continue to be getting the word out about what we're doing, but I just hope it's good. I hope it's good for you to know that we're working on this, and that we hope we're not too far away from being able to have in-person services. And we really encourage you from now on just to continue to meet with people safely in homes and gardens and such like. Take advantage of the lovely weather if it stretches as far as the weekend. And we've had a couple of nice little messages, and thank you, Sam. That's a really kind thing. And I'm well, Jackie. I hope you're doing well as well. And John, I'm looking forward to the live streams as well. So, Pete, we just have a really brief look back on your message from yesterday, part of the Homecoming series. Do you want to just recap on that briefly?
Yeah. So yesterday we continued our series, Homecoming. And I looked at the passage from Luke 17 and the story of the 10 lepers, and how Jesus, on his way between ministering in Galilee and going down to Jerusalem, encounters these 10 men. It was an interesting passage for me to look at. I shared with some of the guys in the office earlier last week that I really wasn't sure what I was going to speak on. Even on Wednesday, I hadn't made up my mind. And so pretty quickly, I think God spoke to me about that passage, and I was able to just share a brief message on that on Sunday. And I think there's so much for us in that message. I'd encourage you. You can go back and catch up with it if you haven't yet had a chance to watch it. You can do so on our YouTube channel. The message in itself is just uploaded now, so you don't have to tune into the whole service unless you want to. You can do that as well. So the options are there for everybody, depending on whatever you want to join into. But yeah, so I really enjoyed sharing on it. If you guys have any questions or comments you want to make about it, that's probably more interesting for me to kind of maybe address any questions or bounce off some of your thoughts about it. I certainly enjoyed preaching about it. I enjoyed reading about it and researching and spending time with God, just asking, what is in this for us right now in this moment. And I think he really spoke to us yesterday through that story.
Can you just remind us, Pete, because that's really important. I mean, it really strikes me as it's one of those stories in the Gospels that's often kind of a bit bypassed by bigger, flashier stories. But can you remind us, what do you really believe God is saying to us right now? For people maybe who've forgotten or haven't seen the message yet, what do you think he's saying to us that right now? So
I think you make an interesting point that it's bypassed. And I think that's kind of the setting of the story, is that it could be bypassed, because this is Jesus just encountering 10 men on the way between one important destination, Galilee, and another important destination, Jerusalem. And it's kind of like this insignificant moment that happens on the middle of a journey. But I think actually there's something in that for all of us, that, the journey in and of itself is not significant. And we could spend so much of our time perhaps prioritizing our eyes on the destination. We always think, where are we going? What destination are we heading towards? What's the point of focus for this journey? But actually the journey in and of itself is full of purpose. And Jesus on that journey, the Bible tells us that he only did what he saw the Father do. And so he knew that as he set off, he had to journey through this particular village because he had a divine appointment to keep with these particular men. And I love the reaction from the Samaritan in the story. Now, I'm making the assumption that the other 9 guys in the story were Jews, because Jesus remarks that the one who turned was a Samaritan. And so I think there's a significance in that. But his reaction is to look past the effects of what Jesus did, to actually take hold of the much more important thing that was on offer that day. And that was actually Jesus himself. And I think that is so crucial for us all of the time in any moment of our lives, that's really important for us. We can often get focused on a lot of other things, and some of those can be really, really good things, things that Jesus is doing, things that God is saying, things that God has called us to do. All of those things are really important things for us to consider and take note of. But the prize, the pearl of ultimate price, is Jesus himself. And that's what this one man who turns around understands. He understands that whilst he's received his healing, and whilst his life can go back to normal, and whilst he can now enjoy all of the things that he couldn't do before while he was suffering from that condition of leprosy, the true prize, the true thing that he received that day wasn't so much the healing and the restoration to normal. It was being in the presence of Jesus, and it was understanding that he'd been in the presence of God. So he goes back to God, he falls at his feet, falls at the feet of Jesus and worships. And then Jesus says to him that your faith has saved you. And that man actually, I think he's the only one actually out of the 10 that day that received their salvation. Maybe the others did later, I don't know. But we know that from in that story, only 1 out of 10 was saved because he understood what the significance of what had happened that day. And so for us, I think with everything that's happening in our lives, with all of the things that are going on around our situation now, and all of the hard work that many of us are doing to get back to in-person meetings like we've been talking about, and all of the other things, we need to ensure that we are focusing on the prize, the real prize, and that prize is Jesus. And then I think there was that encouragement for us to share that prize with all those people that we come into contact with. I think that's really important for us as well, is not only is this a prize for us, it's a prize for everybody who we can come into contact with as well. And so there's an opportunity for us to share the ultimate prize with people, which isn't necessarily the benefits of knowing Jesus, it's knowing Jesus himself. Absolutely.
And it reminded me yesterday, Pete, of a school assembly I did a year or two ago where I actually talked about this we were talking about thankfulness, and we were talking very, very little kids. And we talked about this exact same piece of scripture about the importance of thankfulness, because so often people will receive a gift. They might not even say thank you, or they may say thank you and then go on their way. But the important thing is to remember and stay in a position of thankfulness. And I think with Jesus, I think ultimately, I really believe, and I'm someone who's praying for healing in people who are close to me, healing in my own body as well. But I know that even if I never were to get that healing, that Jesus would still be enough, because ultimately Jesus has already paid the price that was on my head by his blood, which is just that is the greatest miracle ever, that Jesus did that God came to earth in human form to do that. And so it's really important, especially when we're going through difficult times, just to remember being thankful and remember that position of thankfulness. And that's there's a lot of layers to that story, aren't there, that we could pick up on. So I guess our time together is nearly to be drawn to a conclusion. Just to remind you again, if if you are wondering what on earth we're doing online at the minute, suggesting we're having our lunch at nearly 3:00 Monday lunchtime live, it's because we had a huge technological catastrophe at 12:30 when we were meant to have it. But we will be back next Monday at 12:30 p.m. 12:30 just for Monday lunchtime live. We will be back for that. Just to let you know about a couple of things that are taking place, or three really big things that are taking place this week. And then on next Sunday, we'll have our services live as usual. Okay, or not quite live, are they? But nearly live.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
You never know. Please stay tuned to social media and our weekly update this week. If you don't get our weekly update, drop us an email at office@life-church.co.uk and we'll get you connected up, or you can visit our website and do it through there. But just to let you know, a couple of three things that will be taking place. So tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. it will be time for Tuesday morning prayer. 7:30 a.m. You heard me right. When we first did our first one, I thought, wow, that's really early. But now, I think with people getting back to work and school, 7:30 doesn't seem quite so early. So even if you can only join us for just a couple of minutes of that, we'd really love you to, because we'll be praying about some important things. And it's great to be able to start the day in prayer together. Later on that day at 10:30 a.m. it'll be time for coffee break. That takes place on Zoom. So it's a virtual coffee morning. So if you want the Zoom code, if you just jump onto our Facebook page or into last week's weekly update, you can go on there. You just need the code, you don't need the password, and we'd really love to see you in there. Dave and Di Coombs will be hosting that, which is really, really wonderful. And then maybe as I tell you about the last thing and we close, you can share 1-2 thoughts about it, Pete. This Thursday it will be time for our latest prayer walk, 7:30 p.m. We'll be meeting at the church building. Please do bring a mask if you can. And just to let you know, we will be, this all depends on numbers, of course, but we will be, once we've assembled, we going off to pray, we will make sure that we're in groups of no bigger than 6 so that we comply with current regulations. But Pete, so we've been doing this for I think we've done about 3, haven't we? About 3 community prayer walks. We love not just the community, but the various communities we serve. And I think it's really great to be able to walk up and down the streets and pray and just seek God's heart for that area. Is there anything in particular that God's really spoken to you about, or something you've really sensed while we've been prayer walking together?
I just think it's been absolutely fantastic that we've been able to do this, even in the current situation. I think it's a great way that the church has been able to mobilize. And I thank, huge thanks to John and Rebecca Bell for really spearheading this for the church and moving us forward in this direction. I think it's a great initiative and a huge opportunity just to pray over and for our community. And I really believe it's an opportunity for us to get a little bit desperate. I think I spoke about this again on Sunday, and the desperation that those 10 men showed as they approached Jesus and cried out for him. And I think all through the Bible, you read stories of desperation, of how desperation catches God's attention. I think that's true throughout church history and through revival history as well. So wherever revival has broken out, it's often been preceded by a small group of people who've been willing to be desperate and willing to prioritize coming before God and asking him to move. And that's what this has been an opportunity for us to do in our community. It's an opportunity for us to get out onto the streets in which we live, the opportunity for us to get out onto the streets in which the church ministers. And even if you don't live locally to the area, we're inviting you to go out onto the streets where you live as well, because it's an opportunity for us to take territory for the kingdom of God. We're able to go and pray into the area in which we operate and we live, and we're able to just to pray God's kingdom in. And we're really believing that off the back of this, we're going to see some incredible things. We're going to see large numbers of people coming to know Jesus. We're going to see signs and wonders and miracles increasing. We're going to see all sorts of things that we perhaps haven't seen for generations. We were believing that are going to break out in this community, because when the church prays, God moves. And that is, you can prove that all the way through the Bible. You can see God doing incredible things when his people who are called by his name humble themselves and pray and ask him to do things. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. It's been great to see so many people engaging with it, and for us to continue to be able to do it as well. And we're going to just keep doing it. We're going to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going until God does what only God does. And we're going to see something incredible from it. I'm convinced. I'm completely sold on the idea. It's a brilliant opportunity. Encourage you to be there. Come join us. If it's hot, wear appropriate clothes. If it's closed, if it's cold, bring a coat. We're still going. Rain, snow, shine, whatever, we're going.
That's great, Pete. I love your enthusiasm, and I can't wait. It's going to be really great. So just to remind you, that's prayer walk, this meeting in the church car park, run about 7:30 this coming Thursday. More than welcome to join us if you're in the local area. If you're not, even if you're not part of our church, we'd love you to come along. If you've got a heart for the area, that's great. Or maybe even if you can't prayer walk where you are, that's a really great point, really great thought, Pete. And just to remind you, tomorrow early morning, Tuesday morning prayer, 7:30 a.m. Facebook and YouTube, and then coffee break on Zoom at 10:30, which is great. And Jackie made the point for you very well there, Pete, because she said she enjoyed it when she went, but remember to take warm clothing, because it reminded me it was a day a little bit like today. I remember, if I remember correctly, the one that Jackie's talking about, and the temperature suddenly dropped. So it's always worth making sure you got something warm to wrap up in. Talking of wrapping up, that's about it from us today. So thank you so much for joining us on a very special Monday lunchtime live, which ended up being Monday afternoon live after our technological issues, but we got there in the end and we did everything we wanted to do. So take good care, God bless, thanks for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you later on in the week.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.